Hi everyone. English is the language of international communication, the media and the internet. So, learning English is important for socializing and entertainment as well as work. We all know how the language of English came to the lands of India. The English people came India to buy and sell the products. Later, they settled down in India and ruled us over many years. They inculcating that English language is rich and higher to learn and spread over the world. Thus, the English language plays the vital role in education. Let's see about Macaulay's minute first.
About Macaulay minutes. On February 2, 1835, British historian and politician Thomas Babington Macaulay delivered his minute on Indian education, which sought to establish the need for Indian natives to receive an English education. The famous Lord Macaulay minute settled the dispute in favor of Anglicists. The limited government resources were to be devoted slowly to the teaching of Western sciences and literature in English. Lord Macaulay believed that Indian learning was inferior to European learning, which was correct in terms of physical and social sciences at that time. Let's see the brief details about Lord Macaulay's.
Thomas Babington Macaulay, born on 25 October 1800 and died on 28 December 1859. He was a big politician and historian from the United Kingdom. He is widely regarded as the primary architect of India's transition to a Western style education system. As an essayist on contemporary and historical social political subjects and as a reviewer, Macaulay wrote extensively. The History of England was a seminal and paradigmatic example of Whig history, and its literary style has remained a source of pride since its publication, even after widespread condemnation of its historical contentions became popular in 20th century. Throughout his political and scholarly career, Macaulay consistently emphasized Western culture's supposed superiority. Macaulay wrote in his February 1835 Minute on Indian Education that a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia, where we pass from works of imagination to works in which facts are recorded and general principles investigated. The superiority of Europeans became absolutely immeasurable. Macaulay was devoted to the concept of progress, particularly in terms of liberal liberties. He was an outspoken opponent of radicalism while idealizing historical European culture and traditions. Let's move on to the background of minutes.
British education policy in colonial India was almost non-existent at first because their sole goal was to make a profit through trade and other means. Gradually, the value of education was reorganized and the company began to construct a few institutes of higher learning. These learning centers provided instruction in Indian subjects in languages such as Sanskrit, Arabic, and Persian. Persian was also the court language.
The Charter Act of 1813 was the country's first concrete step towards modern education. This act allotted an annual sum of rupees 1 lakh for the purpose of educating the subjects. It should not be noted that missionaries were already present in the country and were involved in this field. However, they primarily provided religious education with the primary goal of Christianizing the heathen natives, while the Orientalists believed that Indians should be educated in their native languages and taught their own scriptures and texts. The other group believed that English education was the best type to be given. In the midst of this, Macaulay arrived in India as a Prime Minister of General Committee of Public Instruction in June 1834. Now we see the objectives.
Spending only on Western education Macaulay wanted the government to spend money only on Western education, not Oriental education. Closure of colleges. He advocated for the closure of all colleges that taught only Western philosophy and subjects. Downward filtration theory. He also advocated for the government to educate only a few Indians who would then educate the rest of the population. This is referred to as the downward filtration policy. Indian by blood and British by taste. He wished to create a pool of Indians capable of serving British interests and remaining loyal to them. This group would be Indian by blood and color, but English by taste, opinions, morals, and intellect. Now let's see the futures.
Lord Macaulay arrived in India on June 10, 1834 as a law member of the Governor General's Executive Council and was appointed President of Committee of Public Instruction. In 1835, he was tasked with settling disputes between Orientalists and Anglicists. He presented his famous minute to the council in February 1835, which Lord Bentinck approved, and resolution was passed in March 1835. The following points were emphasized by him. The main goal of the British government should be promoted European literature and science among Indians, and that all funds appropriated for the purpose of education would be best spent on English education alone. All existing professors and students at all institutions under the committee supervision shall continue to receive stipends, but no stipend shall be given to any students who may subsequently enter any of these institutions. No funds from the government were to be spent on the printing of Oriental works. All funds available to the government would be spent in the future on imprinting knowledge of English literature and science to Indians. Now we move on to the downward filtration theory.
Downward filtration theory. Downward filtration theory is a theory proposed by Lord Macaulay in his famous Macaulay's Minute of 1835, which were submitted to the Governor General of British India. The downward filtration theory was a remedy for the issue British India had in putting the new education strategy into practice. It suggested that the remedy was to educate a small group of people who could then disseminate their knowledge to the general public. In this manner, the knowledge could be given to the person who will spread it to the whole public. Actually, Macaulay was tasked with researching the true origins of the Oriental-Occidental controversy, which dominated the educational landscape between 1817 and 1853.
Now we see the Macaulay Minute's merits. Role of English in India's freedom struggle. The first advantage of Macaulay's Minute for Indians was that it contributed to the expansion of the English language in India. It cannot be denied that English later played a significant influence in India's freedom movements. Foundation by modern education in India. The second advantage that Macaulay's Minute provided to Indians was that it helped create the groundwork for modern education in that country. It represented a transition from the traditional indigenous educational system to a structured contemporary education system. Now we see about the demerits of Macaulay's Minute.
Indeed, of resolving the issue known as the Oriental-Occidental controversy, Macaulay's Minute was indeed fueling the flames. Macaulay did not listen to any of the Orientalist arguments. He aggressively insulted them in addition to rejecting their pleas. Although his claim that English was the key to modern knowledge was true, it was not practical to educate Indians at all levels in English at the time because it was the beginning of modern education in India.
Thus, the conclusion is modern ideas, if not education, did reach the masses, albeit not in the form of desire by the rulers, but rather through political parties, the press, pamphlets, public platforms, and so on. Modern education only aided this process by making basic literature on physical and social science available to nationalists, thereby stimulating their capacity to make social analysis, served colonial interest. Thank you, everyone.